The planning board meeting on May 5th will come to order. We have a fairly short agenda tonight, and one of the public hearings, which is the Osgood Solar one, is being continued, you said? So, continue. Okay, so we will hold that one over, but we do have a couple of other hearings which we will, we have a public meeting and some bond releases. So let's move first to the bond release, 250 Clark Street.
Yep, this is for Flight Land Data. They were issued a special permit in 2013 to construct some office space, R&D space, and an additional hangar space. They've submitted an as-built and a certification letter from their engineer. I visited the site. Everything's in order. They have a $5,000 performance bond that I recommend full release.
Okay, so everything is good in order. So would somebody like to make a motion to release the remaining performance bond for 250 Clark Street?
So moved.
Okay, motion made.
Second.
And seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Good, the next item then is the continued public meeting, the 602 Boxford Street, which is a preliminary subdivision plan. So.
He's still coming tonight, or? He's not going to make it, okay. John, did you want a motion to accept the continuance on the June 2nd? Do you want to do that first, or?
Well, we don't, if we still have time, we don't need to do anything. We can just carry it over.
Okay.
Is there anything that you want to mention? This gives me time to catch up, but
Okay,
did we, the big thing in the preliminary is, since it's a PRD, we want to make sure that they justified the lots according to conventional zoning.
Yep, so they submitted a conventional proof plan for a 7-lot subdivision. That met the proof. They've also submitted a PRD plan, so their intent is to construct PRD. The only thing within the PRD is they would request a waiver for the cul-de-sac length. And 2 of the septic systems are shown within the 50-foot buffer zone on lots 4 and 5, sorry. And that was somewhat in question. So the ability to waive construction for a septic, they'd have to clear some of the land, which the requirement is to leave it in its natural state for that 50-foot. The abutting property is all open space land associated with Brookview subdivision, so that's also a PRD. So the lot behind these lots 4 and 5.
So this is the 50, it's not a wetlands 50-foot,
No, it's the PRD 50-foot.
Yeah, okay.
And so 2 septic systems,
Okay.
which would...
Well, let's carry it over to next time when they're here, so we can have that as a full discussion. So,
Okay.
I mean, I do think that that is a gray area. I mean, I think we have the flexibility to waive that if we want to, if that's the only thing. But
Yeah.
we'd have to look at the totality of the septic design and so forth, and understand
Okay.
why they picked that.
But so the preliminary meeting is really on the conventional subdivision.
Well,
So-
it's to do the lots and to provide direction in terms of what we
Yeah.
want them to do, so,
Okay.
yeah. So I would rather, if he's not here, is he going to be here, or is he? Okay. So will we be able to come on the 2nd of June?
Yeah, unless I can answer any questions you might have.
Well, why don't we make a start of it? I wouldn't finish it, but I don't know. Does anybody else have any? I mean, I'm obviously sort of...
One of the septics, he said he could probably move. The perk test was whoever he's having a problem on lot.
Do you want me to bring up the PRD again? I brought up the conventional subdivision. So, John, just for your knowledge, this is the 7 on the conventional plan.
Okay.
The wetlands are most significant driving down the road to the left side, so not on the side of the PRD, on the septic issue. So to go back,
How big are all the conventional lots?
2 acres,
Yeah.
and it's R1 zoning.
And do they all have, where are the wetlands?
So the left side of the roadway.
Okay.
Can you see it? Sorry, this isn't.
So we're not far away on the CBA on any of the lots?
No, they're without This would not require conservation at all, so they're more than 100 feet from any wetland.
Oh, okay.
And they're providing more than enough open space. So there's approximately 12 acres of open space, and 4 of which are wetland.
So, Linda, your point about the perks, are these the perks on the
Yeah.
traditional plan?
No, on the subdivision plan, lot 5 and 4 and 5,
4 and
you'll
5.
see right there, the septic in 5. That was the one they were having problems finding any location. For lot 4, he said he could shift it.
Well, these are on the, okay,
These were on the side which abut additional open space.
okay. So, I guess the question I have before we get to that is, do they have, you don't want to do a lot of perk testing for the traditional subdivision lots, but you want to,
They have done perk tests, they've done soil tests for what is shown here today, and everything was acceptable with health,
okay,
as they're shown today,
okay.
which is within the 50-foot buffer.
When are you going to go to the Board of Health to get designs approved?
Once we're sure we're going forward with everything. I mean, if it's approved, we wouldn't do the designs unless we knew the slot configuration was what you wanted.
Okay,
But all the
Okay.
deeps, perks, everything's been done and accepted by them.
okay.
So we can go forward with designs.
I mean, would you characterize, how hard was it to find perk locations on this property?
That one area in the back was all sand and gravel, and that's why we used it. Tried to stay away from the top of the hill. The soils were much tighter up the top. It was a Paxton soil. But
Okay.
we can move some of those around. We were out there in the winter when, it was 0 with 8 feet of snow, so we were out there for about close to a week
Okay,
to get everything done. But some of those tests, if we have to, can be moved.
okay,
I think lot 4, he said he could move. He was pretty
Right,
confident.
he was pretty confident in lot 4.
And that one's actually probably the closest one, more intrusive into the buffer zone.
have you sent these to the Board of Health for them to?
Yes.
And what feedback have you gotten from them?
Nothing other than they've done their soil test, and they thought everything was fine in the locations they are, according to them, and according to their setbacks and their requirements for the soil test.
Okay, because if, again, we don't want to force them to do full septic designs on
Yeah.
a traditional plan that they're not going to do, because that's not fair.
Right.
But we want to reasonably feel that they could build this traditional design and they could get the septic systems in. So if they're satisfied in their judgment that that's the case, then that's fine. And, for now, we just, we want to be aware of if there aren't even any significant septic issues. And it seems like there's maybe 1 or 2, but not that bad.
Talk to health, the only concern is the fact that they're in our 50-foot buffer within the PRD. It's not a concern with health's
Right,
oversight in terms of are they in suitable locations for them.
yeah,
They're okay with the location
yeah.
and the soil test.
Well, I mean, that's ultimately something we have to decide on the totality of things, and,
Right.
maybe there's some offset someplace else.
Yep.
But I don't think we need to make that decision now.
And I can show you the locus if you'd like, and show the open space behind it. There's no development behind it.
Yeah, probably when you, at some point you ought to just do that. I mean, if you have it readily available now, you
We have
can
it.
show
We
it
looked
to
at it,
us.
Liz.
Yeah.
And the only other thing that came up last meeting, John, is they've submitted it under Autumn Woods. We recommended changing it because we have an Autumn Chase, so they've selected
Oh, yeah.
Wellington Woods.
Wellington?
Wellington. So this is the parcel here, and then the green space just to the kind of northeast of this is Brookview's open space parcel.
Yeah.
So those septics are
I see.
abutting that open space.
Okay,
So the 50-foot buffer is to another open space parcel.
yeah.
And the wetlands here, although they're not delineated exactly, they are in fact where the wetlands are.
I mean, one of the things that you should check, I don't know if any of those open space parcels, there's, trails or anything, but to the extent that there might be some trails, we want to make sure that the access to the open space here gets you to the open space in the other
Yep.
property.
Yep, the open space will abut all the way over to
Yeah.
Brookview, and there's a connection at the end of Duncan Drive. I guess
Right.
it's underwater most of the time, so it's not a good connection, but they can provide access. And Jennifer has walked all this
Yeah,
area.
just check with, make sure
Yep.
that what we end up with, especially the access, Jennifer's okay with.
Yep.
So, yeah. Good. Anything else anybody wants to ask now?
Yes.
Go ahead.
On, I think it was Gene Willis's email, he said that he didn't see a proof plan. Was it Gene or Bruce or someone mentioned they had, was it Gene's?
Oh, I think he wasn't commenting relative to the proof plan, knowing they're going to build this PRD.
Well, he asked if they had done a proof
Yeah.
plan, so,
He received it.
okay. I just wanted to make sure.
He did receive it.
Okay.
I took all of his objections as being resolved based on the last meeting.
Oh, I think, no, it is common because it's
Yeah.
not a final plan.
Yeah. Phil Christensen responded that he'll address all of Gene's concerns in the definitive plan, that they'd be addressed there.
So why don't we just have Phil back one last time, and then we can close this off and give him final direction for the definitive plan. So, okay, thank you. So we got warrant articles.
So on the Osgood, they've accepted the continuance, you're okay, and June 2nd. On the warrant articles. I think you have a hard copy of the CIP articles. Bruce Thibodeau was in at the last meeting and explained these, so I left it open. We did not vote action on this.
So I don't know, does anybody have strong opinions on any of these things, or any of these really pertain to us much?
We went through them.
I think he answered everything.
Yeah.
I just wish my street was one of the ones getting
Oh,
repaid.
yeah.
I'll say, I know, I tell my neighbors, he said next year.
Yeah,
You could do cliff diving in part of my street.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember the logic by which you pick streets, I remember, is always a little bit of a mysterious art.
Yeah. Very mysterious. But I've gone on record that he went on record, right? 2016, he
Yeah,
told
You
me.
go on the website, it'll show you the
Yeah.
streets. The years, so.
So I guess I will defer to, do we want to make a recommendation on the?
Yes.
Yeah.
So why don't we, somebody want to make?
We vote for favorable action on the capital improvement plan.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. The CPA stuff, I see, of course, you do have that there, so how come I don't have this? Yes, I do. I do.
What are we doing on Ridgewood for $600,000?
I'm glad you asked.
I am on the property.
Yeah. Oh, you are? Well, the first thing I always like to say about cemeteries is that every community in the Commonwealth, every municipality has to make a provision for running a cemetery. And in some towns, there's a municipal cemetery. North Andover has managed to avoid that by Ridgewood provides that function. So it's actually, even though it's a private entity, it provides a quasi-municipal function and actually has saved the town a ton of money over the years. If you may remember, we've funded several projects for CPA for Ridgewood in past. What we did was, the most recent thing that we did is we actually had them do a master plan. And this is basically the guts of the master plan. And they decided that it's the substantial improvement of really everything in that property that would bring it back up to speed. If you go in there, and notice, I don't know if you go in there like for the Memorial Day event, there's a lot of erosion. And there's particularly a lot of erosion around a lot of the gravestones. So it's actually, a lot of them run the risk of falling over. So the project here is basically to sustain and stabilize all of the slopes all through the place, it's to, a lot of the roadways are starting to corrode, and it's to redo all the roadways, and to really bring the thing back to its original sort of pristine state. And they felt, instead of doing it over 2 or 3 phases, that it would be cheaper to do it all at once when you had the people in and you did it at once. So that's really what that is for. It is a fair amount of money, but we spend a lot of time with them, and I think that, I think it's going to, the idea was, as the model of the place was Mount Auburn Cemetery, and in the city, in Cambridge, I think it is, to have that kind of historical cemetery, and that's really what they're trying to do with this. So,
John, you said we spent a lot of time with them. Who's the we?
the we is the Community Preservation Committee.
Okay, great, thanks.
We met with them twice to go over it and to really understand it, because it was more than any of the projects have been in the past, and we wanted to make sure it was right. And I think they convinced us that doing it at once was better than spreading it out over a period of years. So.
I take your point about, communities are required to have a cemetery. In this case, it's private. That's been a great benefit to the town. Is there any type of formula that's used to kind of assess, how does a community decide how much it supports a private provider of cemetery?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any magical formula. I think until very recently, Ridgewood actually just did it on their own. If you look at all the people on the Ridgewood board, it's Ben Osgood, it's Jim LaFond, it's actually John Smolak, Dave Rand, the infamous Officer Rand. If you were back at town meetings 20 years ago and talking about the Beavers, you would know who Dave is, but he's one of the great town characters. But it's all people that have a long-standing abiding interest in the town. And they actually probably made a mistake by not going to CPA sooner, because what they were doing was they were underinvesting in the maintenance and support, and I think now they realize that they should have done this a little bit sooner, so.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Is Ridgewood a nonprofit or a business?
It's a nonprofit, yeah, it's a nonprofit, and it's actually, the other project, the most recent project there, was put on the National Registry of Historical Places, so that it would, it would have to be preserved forever. Trying to think some of the, one of the things that they do is, to the town functions, there's explicitly a number of spaces they reserve sort of pro bono for people that can't afford it to live in the town if, people need to be buried. And
Is that every year they do that? Or
yeah, every
just a
year they
set
do that.
number?
No,
Okay.
they do that every year, so they do have that feature. And it's interesting because, not that it matters for what we're doing, but one of the things that they try to do is they try to figure out, how can they delay the build out of this thing so that the space will last, they think now they figured out a way to make it last 100 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Is that by putting that area in the woods where they're going to have the cremation?
Well, that's one of the things that would do that, because you need less space for that, but there's also ways that, because you're not going to have like these enormously huge mausoleums that occupy a huge amount of land. It's more like that Mount Auburn country estate model, so you don't need as much there, so.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, are they on the tax rolls?
No, it's a nonprofit,
Okay.
so, yeah.
So they don't have to pay
They don't have to pay real estate taxes and stuff, yeah.
Could I ask a question about this?
Yeah.
What are they going to do to the former fire station? Do you know?
The former fire
It says
station.
former fire station, renovation of the former fire station.
Yeah, you mean
It's
like
right
next
here,
door?
I know.
Yeah, it's
So-
us.
So that's going to be, the
That's
renovation is to
basically
have the
what they're
town
going
open.
to do to the other side of it is what they did here. It's,
Okay, so it's gonna look like
The model's just
this.
about
Okay.
exactly the same as this, where we fund the historical, we funded all the brick and the windows and stuff.
I get asked a lot what's going to
Yeah.
happen with this building.
But, it's really, I mean, what's very interesting is they're trying to figure out, because that's going to, effectively, it's going to become one building.
Yeah, right.
So what I think they're going to do is they're going to move the focal point to a little bit to the side, almost to where the fire entrance is. And that's going to be the focal point into the building. And this entrance that they have here will be a lesser one. They won't wall it off, but it'll be a lesser. So they'll, it's very interesting. I mean, the town manager showed us some ideas of what they're going to do, but they haven't figured it out completely. I think it's going to be a great project.
I think it'll be awesome to have everything in
it'll all be
one
one-
spot.
Oh,
Do the
yeah.
floors line up?
They have to do some work. They have to do
course they
some work.
don't.
Yeah, it's never as easy as you would like.
Didn't think so.
Yeah, I think the whole cost of the thing's going to be about $4 or $5 million, so, yeah. So those are, I don't know if there's any of the other ones that you might have some questions with. It's funny, when I went to the,
Brad Street School Memorial?
interestingly enough, if you go down there, there's a very large stone monument that has Brad Street School, and a bunch of other things. You can actually still see it. What they're going to do is they're going to pull that out and protect it, and then they're going to take things of artifacts from all the other schools that are no longer with us, and they're going to put that as a sort of a central memorial to all of the former schools. Like, one of the things I noticed is that one of the stairs to, there's a school in the old center, there used to be a school in the old center, actually, one of the stairs is actually there. It's right in the Drummond playground.
Oh.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that, so, yeah. So that's one the Historical Society is pushing it. It's nice, I mean, I think personally that one of the worst mistakes the town ever made was tearing down the old Johnson High School. That was, and they built that crappy police station that they've just torn down. But so you date yourself. That was gone before you were. Yeah.
I grew up across the street. I remember when they tore it down.
Oh, so you would know, yeah,
Directly across the street.
yeah. I mean, that
In
was.
fact, we always refer to it as the new police station. It's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, right across the
Yeah.
street.
Oh, there. So you know better than
It
anybody.
didn't do that neighborhood any good
No, it didn't.
at all.
It did. It really didn't. I was ashamed. It was a beautiful.
It
old,
really,
Yeah.
yeah, it was.
Yeah. So, I mean, if, in hindsight, because if it had happened now, we would have kept the building.
Yeah.
Definitely. The thing with the Brad Street is that the Brad Street really, if you looked at that building critically, it didn't have any really redeeming features other than that one thing that we're taking from the site. There was really no architectural design features of any merit, and then it got bastardized in the 20s and 30s with additions, and, so tearing it down was probably not all that bad, so, yeah. So that's basically it. I don't know.
Stevens Estate bathroom restoration, is that more than one bathroom for
Yeah.
50,000?
Yeah.
Okay, you
Yeah.
might want to put plural.
Yeah, yeah.
Because one bathroom,
Yeah.
I don't care if you're making it
Bathrooms.
handicap accessible
Yeah.
or whatever, it's still
No,
50.
it's all of the ones on the second floor. One of the things that's interesting about that is, I don't know if you've ever been in and seen them, but what BU did by putting bathrooms in there that they have now is a crime. They should have been arrested for it. It's just awful. I mean, staggeringly awful. But the bathrooms are incredibly beautiful. But what we said was, if you're going to redo the bathrooms, you have to keep the nice architectural features. That you can't, destroy them. And it's interesting because one of the people on the CPC is Brad Wakeman. I don't know if any of you folks know Brad, but Brad bought Bob Stevens' house, which is the house right next to the old center. And he has not only external preservation restrictions, but internal preservation restrictions on his house. So he can't monkey with like things in the bathroom of his house. So he says, we got to put something. But you go into the bathrooms and there's like these really cool things, so you can see why it's preserved. So, but it's the same way here in Stevens Estate. The bathrooms have magnificent fixtures. So, so it's a question of preserving them. So yes, it is plural.
Okay.
So, yes, good point. Yeah.
Yeah, 50,000, people might flip out about a bathroom for 50,000.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's basically it. There were a couple of land projects that we heard casually about, but they weren't ripe and they weren't really ready, so we passed on those. So, hopefully there'll be some things that come up next year, but for this year, there really weren't any, so.
Just curious, 1.6 expenditures, what's the ballpark income?
It's basically about a little over 2.5.
Okay, so you're under
So,
budget,
yeah,
yeah.
and if you look at our longer-term plans, you'd see most years we spend a little bit less than what we take in to
Some
build up a
cases, yeah.
surplus. So, yeah, we don't want to
Yeah,
run it
okay,
up to the limit, so, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So would somebody like to make a motion to recommend favorable action on that article?
I'll make that.
Okay, motion made in Article 26 CPC. And seconded by Laura. All in favor? Aye. Okay. So we have minutes, right? April 7th minutes?
Yes?
April 7th.
April 7th, is that right?
That's the date.
No.
It should be the 21st.
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 Just one change, Michael's name, is Colin Tony spelled wrong.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 21st? Yeah, 21st meeting as amended.
Second. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Just
Okay.
one update. Last meeting, we talked about 80 Sail Way and his kind of refusal to act on his special permit. I've since contacted him. He's okay. He's going to be into file his bond, and he has the understanding the as-built does not have to be an engineered as-built, so he was fine with that. So that should move forward.
Good. Good. I guess just before we go, the one thing I think I did mention that I'm not going to be here for the town meeting, unfortunately. I tried to get out of it. We'll need to schedule a meeting, at 6:30 or something that day,
Yep.
just in case we have anything we need to vote on. I think in terms of, more seriously, the zoning articles, you probably, what I would do is, and I'm going to a meeting Friday morning at 8 o'clock and over all the zoning articles, so, all the warrant articles. So I'll get a sense of whether, I kind of generally think you don't want to do presentations if you can avoid them.
Agreed.
But, but you ought to be prepared with like one or two slides and that are almost, maybe a map and or an outline form about what it is. And you ought to be, what you ideally want to do is just be able to talk, for like 2 minutes about it, because they'll probably say, can we give a brief explanation? And you say, okay, we have this downtown overlay district, this was the year it came in, we put it in for this reason, but we found out that it doesn't work for the mill area, so we did this special mill district, and we did this great committee, and blah, 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 and it does wonderful things, and, and you just explain it in 2 or 3 minutes. And I don't know, Lynn, if you want to do it, or Jeannie, if you want to do it, but I think you probably need to be prepared to speak for like 2 minutes, no more than that. And I wouldn't do slides, but I might have a couple slides available just in case. But it's more that simple script, very simple to the point. People want to know what it is and why you're doing it and why it's good for the town. So
And who's going to present your community preservation? You had somebody?
I
from your-
have
cool,
Brad
yeah.
Wakeman.
Okay, good. I was
is
going
gonna
to say,
do it,
because I know
so.
you usually do it, so.
Yeah. So I'll have somebody do that for me, so, yeah. Okay, anything else, anybody, Scott? So we can adjourn, motion to adjourn,
Move we adjourn.
okay?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ready?